What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here with your second stimulus check update. And we're going to have some really big news coming out regarding stimulus and everything related. I will give you all the details on it in this video. But first, if you haven't yet, click the subscribe button down below. It's completely free to do so. This way you won't miss out on second stimulus check and related news such as unemployment extension and money for small businesses. My wife and I do all the research for you guys every single day, and we bring it to you in a quick, concise video, so you don't have to do any research on your own. And don't forget to smash the like button for us down below. It really helps out our channel. So, how was your Labor Day weekend? Did you have an amazing time? Yesterday was awesome here in Ohio. It was sunny skies, and I mean, it was a little cloudy, but it was a pretty good day. Today has been very different. It's been thundering and lightning and raining all morning, and it was some of the loudest thunder I've ever heard in my life. I'm here in Northeast Ohio. Let me know if you're in or around this area and you have heard this thunder because wow, it was loud. Let me know if you actually hear any of it during this video. There's a little bit still in the area. It's still raining, but it was like big booming thunder, like shake the house type of thunder, and it went on for like 2 hours. It wasn't just like a 10-minute storm that moved by. It was here all morning. So anyways, I hope you guys had a fabulous Labor Day. I hope you're still enjoying it. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys did, if you've had a great time. Okay, for stimulus check news, it is going to be a big week for several different reasons. Number one is that the Senate is back in session. They come back tomorrow, and that's pretty good news because although they didn't need to be back in session to vote on a bill because it would have had 24 hours to come back, now that they're actually in session, they're going to be debating on the floor, they're going to be voting on bills, they're going to be releasing bills. We'll get to that here in a second. But having them back in session, back in DC, is really good because now everybody, they're renewed, they're not back in their states, they're not back on vacation, they're not doing other things, they're actually in DC and they're concentrating on what the important issues are at hand, and that is stimulus. So, not is it only good news that the Senate is back in session. The House isn't quite in session yet, but they will be soon. So, we have the Senate back in session, and the next piece of good news is they are going to, or at least they said they're going to, release a new stimulus bill this week. They've apparently been having conference calls between the Senate Republicans every morning, and they are going to release a bill this week for stimulus. We've had a lot of back and forth of what's going to be in it, what could be in it, what this person thinks in it, what that person thinks in it. And the reality of it is that the Senate Republicans have just not released the information. So anything that you've heard, like checks are going to be in it, checks are not going to be in it, unemployment's going to be in it, unemployment's not going to be in it, is just not true because we don't know the details yet. They haven't released it. They're basically keeping it all to themselves right now until they release more details. So we just don't know if checks are going to be in it or not. So what we do know is the Republicans have said that they want to make it agreeable for the Democrats so that when they do release it, it's not dead on arrival. So they apparently have been modifying it and working on it and negotiating between themselves for what they think the Democrats are going to like. You would think that they would just negotiate with the Democrats. We don't actually know if they're doing that or not. I haven't heard anything on that. I do know that the Republicans were going around Nancy Pelosi and talking with hundreds of other Democrats over the past week or two. So the Republicans have been talking to the Democrats, and they've also been talking to Nancy Pelosi. But you and I both know that Nancy Pelosi is just basically, she's saying, stop. I want $2 trillion and that's it. And she basically is saying that she wants a blank check. What she is actually saying, this is actually what she's saying, she's telling Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who is the main Republican negotiator, that she wants a $2.2 trillion stimulus package, and she does not want to say what's in her package or what she wants in the $2.2 trillion. She's saying she needs $2.2 trillion and she wants a blank check. The Republicans, Mark Meadows and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, have both asked her what's in her $2.2 trillion, and she does not answer the question, and she says, we'll get to those details later. So she's saying she wants a blank check for $2.2 trillion, and she's going to tell them later after they agree on it, and then they will figure out what's in there. Now, the problem is that I know a lot of details about this because we talk about this every day. We look into this every day. I know what she wants to do. She wants to spend like half of that, $1 trillion, on states and cities. There's a lot of states and cities that are desperate for money. And the criticism of it, what President Donald Trump says, of course, Trump's a Republican and Nancy Pelosi is a Democrat. President Donald Trump says it's all money for Democratic cities. So that's why they don't want to just give them $1 billion because, the age-old, disagreement, the age-old fight is that it's the Republicans versus the Democrats, and apparently they're two completely different sides, and, they have to find agreements, but they find agreements by, making concessions. Say, okay, I'll give you this if you give me that. So apparently Republicans and Democrats are completely two different people that can't even, fathom what the other party is thinking, but Nancy Pelosi wants to spend a lot of that money on states and cities. So that's why the Republicans are like, we need to know what's in this bill. We don't want to just spend $1 trillion on states and cities because they're against that. And Nancy Pelosi is saying, I just want a blank check. Can't you just give me a blank check for $2 trillion or $2.2 trillion? I mean, that's not really that much to ask. Of course, this is what she's saying. She's saying that's not that much. It's $2 trillion. Just pass the $2 trillion, give me the check, and I'll decide what goes in the check. Trust me, I'll spend it. Don't worry, I'll spend all the money. Just give me the $2 trillion check, and we'll worry about what's in there later. So that's actually what is happening right now. Now, I'm going to tell you this. My wife actually just whispered this to me from the other room. Of course, she'll edit that part out. My wife does all of our video editing for us. But she really thinks, and apparently a lot of other reporters are catching on to this now, that she thinks that President Donald Trump, we're going to get the stimulus from him. She thinks he's going to do it through a presidential executive order. So apparently President Donald Trump and the White House and America has a checking account sitting there with $300 billion in it. And the president says he wants to use that for stimulus checks. And he wants to pass those to you guys right away. And it's funny because the $300 billion is just enough money to pass a stimulus check. That's about what it costs from the first stimulus package. Now, that included $1,200 checks and $500 checks for dependents. If they go to $1,200 checks, it's probably going to be more like $400 billion. So if the president does it through this fund, that it's funny that he mentions this, it's exactly $300 billion. Like, did he really have a fund sitting there with exactly $300 billion? Or do they just have money just sitting everywhere? I mean, they are the government. They do print their own United States currency. I mean, honestly, they probably just have funds sitting everywhere with billions and trillions of dollars. I mean, they got to have reserve money. They can't just, they probably just have money sitting everywhere. So it's funny that he mentions it has exactly $300 billion, and that's exactly the amount of money needed for a check. And I've had a lot of comments from you guys saying, shaking my head. They've had this fund sitting there all along this whole time, and they could have passed the checks, and they didn't. Well, apparently yes. And honestly, if you just know the government, they probably have dozens of accounts sitting there, or they probably have accounts with just trillions of dollars sitting. I mean, they do print their own money. So why now? Well, the election is in less than 60 days. So, I've said this all along. Again, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. But I did say that if they don't pass this like a month ago, that as we get closer to the election, it becomes more and more likely and more urgent to get this passed before the election. The good news is we just want to get it passed. We just want to have the money sent out to you guys. We want to get more unemployment extension, more PPP money for small businesses. We just want to get more relief for the people. So no matter what the agenda is or what, this person thinks or that person thinks, at the end of the day, what we really want is just to get the checks out. And apparently more people are starting to catch on to this idea that they think the president is just going to pass this through a presidential executive order. And there's some debate on whether he can or can't do that. But the thing is he did do that for the unemployment money. The money was sitting in a fund, and he passed a presidential executive order to that money that was sitting in the fund to basically send it to the unemployed people. So really, if you think about that, this is the exact same situation. There's $300 billion sitting in a fund. The president is waiting for Congress to make an agreement, which is what he was doing last time. And they couldn't come to an agreement. And then, he says, I'm going to step in and pass that money and send it to the people. Before it was unemployment, now it's going to be stimulus checks. So these are his exact words. Okay. Now he says, of course, he wants Congress to pass it ahead of time. But then there's Nancy Pelosi, who apparently is the only speaker for the Democrats. She's just like whatever she says goes, and it doesn't matter what the other Democrats want, because we've had hundreds of other Democrats speak out and say, Nancy, just take the deal. Just agree on something, negotiate a little bit down, pass a deal, and then we can work on negotiating on the other stuff later on. Nancy Pelosi says, nope, no. I want a blank check for $2.2 trillion. And then we'll figure out what we're going to spend on it. But $2.2 trillion is what it's got to be. Well, what I think was going to happen, and what my wife just thinks was going to happen, and what a lot of other people are starting to catch on and report on now, is that as they stall this a little bit more and they can't come to an agreement, I think the president's just going to step in and be the hero and pass these checks before the election. Now, they can't pass it right before the election because these checks take time to get out. It's going to take at least 7 days for the direct deposits to go out. And then people have, they get their checks are going to be like another week or so. So they really need to pass this within like this month so that the checks can start going out and everybody gets them before the election. He doesn't want to do this and have people not get their checks before they vote. So they need to be doing this here pretty quickly. And you would think Nancy Pelosi would see this and figure this out, because here's what's going to happen. If Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats don't make an agreement, they don't make a deal, okay, another week or so blows by and then the president announces this, well, guess what happened the last time the Democrats didn't make a deal and the president passed it through the presidential executive order and millions of people got their extra unemployment boost? Well, those millions and millions of people were happy with the president. They were saying, thank you, Mr. President. Even if they don't like the president, even if they're true Democrats that don't want to vote for the president, they were very thankful to the president because he was the only one that passed it. Okay, without him, they wouldn't have been getting that money. Nancy Pelosi surely didn't pass it. So if that happens again right before the election, and Nancy Pelosi is like the arch nemesis of the president. It's like Superman and Kryptonite. They're just like complete opposites. So if Nancy Pelosi doesn't come to an agreement for a stimulus check or a stimulus package before the election, and the president steps in and passes these checks to all Americans, or at least all Americans that qualify, and they send out all this money and people get all these checks right before the election, what do you think is going to happen? And I'll tell you, that's not going to be good news for Nancy Pelosi. There's been some speculation that if President Trump wins again, that she might just resign instead of have to deal with 4 more years of President Trump. Again, it's not that I like either side. It's just a speculation on what she's saying, because she just hates him with all her might. And there's speculation that she might not want to deal with that again, and that she might just retire even if she's reelected. She is 80 years old at this point. So does she really want to go 4 more years into age 84 with President Donald Trump? If you were Nancy Pelosi, you would see the writing on the wall. The president literally just announced this, that if Congress can't come to an agreement, that they're exploring ways on how they can pass it through a presidential executive order. And this money is already sitting in a fund earmarked from the first stimulus package. So it's not that much of a stretch that it can go from that fund to a new stimulus package for the stimulus checks. I mean, it's already earmarked for stimulus. And that is really the key. It's already in a fund for this virus relief, for this pandemic. So for him to pass a presidential executive order and just change a few sentences, oh, instead of spending it on this for the pandemic, we're spending it on checks for the pandemic. I mean, again, this money is just sitting there. It's unused. It's just sitting there not being used. Okay. So you don't think that President Donald Trump is going to do that before the election if they don't come to an agreement? I mean, he wants to get reelected. I mean, if I was the president, I'd be wanting to pull out all the stops to get reelected too. I'd be like, hey, let's make the people happy. Let's do this. Let's do that. You know, let's fulfill all of our promises, all our campaign promises. Let's try to fulfill as many of them as we haven't. That's what I would do if I was running for president. You know, re-election just like lights a new fire under you. Like, hey, let's get as much done as we can before the election so that we can be like, hey, look at all these things that we've done, even just in the recent months. Now, of course, you know, we did stuff in the past. Again, this is if I was president. But it'd be like, look at all the things we just did for you guys. It's fresh in your minds. Okay, that's what anybody would do that's smart, that wants to be reelected. Okay, so I really think that even if the Republican bill comes out this week and it has checks or it doesn't have checks, or it has unemployment or it doesn't have unemployment, if it's a skinny bill, which is going to be a smaller bill with just one or two things in it, or if it's a larger bill with a lot of things in it, what probably might happen is the Democrats might just not agree with it, okay? Because again, it's a Republican bill. They're trying to get them to agree with it. But if the stalemate continues for more than another week or so, the president is probably going to step in here and be like, listen, Congress can't agree on anything. You know, I'm just going to step in for the American people and pass these checks, get you guys relief. You know, I'm for the people and this is my checks and here we go. And honestly, it's going to help out a lot of people. I mean, I've read through thousands and thousands and thousands of comments from you guys saying, we just need this money. We need money for food. We need money for bills. We need money for rent. And, you know, they've passed some things. They've passed the unemployment extension. They passed the eviction moratorium. They've just recently extended the free food for children and for some families all the way to the end of the year. So they are passing stuff. But a lot of the stuff that has to be agreed on between the Republicans and the Democrats just isn't passing. Most of the stuff is just coming through presidential executive orders and stuff that the president can just pass on his own without getting the Democrats to agree on. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Make sure you've hit the like button for me down below. I will keep you updated as the Republicans announce this new stimulus bill and as the breaking developments of what the president is going to do. I will keep you updated on all this information as it comes out. And click on this top video to watch my newest stimulus check videos next. And this video teaches you how to start a business selling products on Amazon FBA. I have students that have replaced their entire 9-to-5 income, and I teach them how to do that. Click on one of those videos to watch them next. Thanks, and I will see you in the next video.